What's up, guys? It's Mrjamvad, and today we are back for another episode of On the Contrary. You know, something just came to mind. I'm gonna have these On the Contrary. I'm gonna have these little bits be like a different type of On the Contrary. It's gonna be in like a playlist of On the Contrary. But the reason I'm saying this is because we're gonna be doing podcasts, short bits of podcasts where we discuss each Pokemon in OU. We're just gonna talk about how they're faring the current meta and their potential. And I'm joined by PokeaimMD today.
Yo, wait, I'm on mute.
No, you're good.
Okay, yo.
He asked me, am I on mute?
I saw mute sign, like I was coming up. I was like, yo, what's up, guys? Yeah, Poke here.
Nah. But he's gonna be my co-host for these. He's my, on YouTube at least, my competitive counterpart. It's really us two that are heavy competitive. Other than VGC and all that, but in singles, yeah. So we're gonna be discussing Dragapult in this episode, and again, I'm gonna make a different, because I have on the contrary, I'm gonna have one for like just general metagame discussions, and one for just discussing the Pokemon. So it's gonna be on the contrary Pokemon edition. I don't fucking know. I'll figure it out, but it'll be cool, guaranteed. But yeah, let's get into Dragapult. Dragapult. I think. Would you say it's the most beloved new Pokemon?
For sure. Definitely mine as well. My personal favorite. New Mon. I think the interesting thing about post Dynamax is that its physical sets are a lot worse. Dragapult heavily focused on moves like Phantom Force, Outrage, Sucker Punch, turning into whatever they turn into. Right, your max Dragon attack, your max Ghost attack. To get rid of the drawbacks of being locked in Outrage, a 2-turn Ghost type attack, or Sucker Punch doesn't matter so much. Sucker Punch was just for opposing Dragapult, and they even use like Max Flare as well, which obviously made a difference on a fully physical set that allowed you to deal with Ferrothorn. So it's interesting because I personally always felt that the Spec set was the best set, but I do think that the physical set just got a ton worse. Like I don't think it's viable. Not being able to break through like Mandibuzz, even though Mandibuzz runs special defensive, so maybe a banded one could work. But with the amount of steals and what we have around Corviknight and Ferrothorn specifically, it's interesting to see that Mon has. It's one of the Mons that I think benefits and doesn't benefit from Dynamax being gone. Like, cause there's definitely a lot that got better with it. The fact that it can actually kill things is pretty big too.
Which is interesting because I actually don't agree with you on that. I think all its sets got worse.
No, I think Sub-Hex.
Well, Sub-Hex wasn't. Okay, I'll say. Let me correct that.
It wasn't.
I'm saying I don't think Sub-Hex changed. Like I think that set was always that set. Like I think back it really just started coming up a little before Dynamax got banned. It wasn't like the original set you'd see like the first 2-3 weeks. Specs was still a lot more popular, as well as Sub DD. But with the physical sets, I don't particularly feel like Banded per se is that great. Primarily because there's no heavy ghost stab. So the fact that you have to take 2 turns is something that I'm not a fan of for a Banded set. However, I do believe with the metagame we have currently that the physical Sub DD set is still very, very, very solid.
With Cursed Body?
Yeah, without Infiltrator, so you can't
get dittoed, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're behind the sub, you can't get dittoed anyway, but you get the idea. Like, I think, Infiltrator can work too, as long as you play it where you're behind the sub. Because Infiltrator Sub DD is great versus those teams that like to run Grimmsnarl setup. Like, Infiltrator is amazing versus those. And the reason I say this is because the physical set is a set I've used in testing. And it's actually the team. Yeah, the thing about when I use the physical set, I view it akin to like how I'd use Scizor back in. So I used Scizor back in ORAS to provide some context. Mega Scizor back then had several checks: the Talonflame, to Heatrans, you name it. It had plenty. However, with a Pokemon like that, I feel like the overload principle, meaning overload principle is using a Pokemon that baits in the same thing as the Pokemon you want to do work. So in the case of, let's say there's let's say you were running a rain team and you have a Barraskewda, or let's use Barraskewda, and you have a Kingdra. Kingdra can't get through Ferrothorn, so let's say Barraskewda didn't even get close combat. It only gets water moves. What you do is attack the incoming Ferrothorn, knowing it's coming. Get a good bit from the Choice Banded liquidation. Let's just say get 35%, and you're gonna leave Barraskewda in to get another 35% off. Sacrifice the Barraskewda, knowing that now Kingdra cannot be walled by Ferrothorn anymore because now it's at maybe 30%, 35%. So
this boy Jam dodged Leech Seed and Protect in his scenario. It's crazy.
What are you talking about?
Nothing. Just keep going.
In
that scenario, Ferrothorn would be at 60% at the end of it. But yeah,
that's if he Leech Seeds. I mean, if he no, he wouldn't be at 60% because if he Leech Seeds and Barraskewda gets 3 hits off instead of 2. So if he switches in 35, people don't run Leech Seed Protect. What do they run? Leech Seed Protect.
Right now,
no hazards.
No, it's Leech Seed Protect Hazard Power Up is one of the most common. Obviously, and they pair it with things that can deal with Dragapult. That's what I've been fighting on the ladder.
Okay, I haven't been fighting it. I mean, for the sake of it, let's say that's the set.
For the sake of your argument, you keep going with it because you're right. You explained it well anyway.
I mean, even if it's Leech Seed Protect, if he chooses to Leech Seed then Protect, the Barraskewda gets away and the Ferrothorn is still at damn near 50%. So he's gonna take, because it's gonna take an attack. He's gonna Leech Seed. I mean, it's gonna take an attack on the switch. Let's say it takes a net of 30%. It takes another 30% as it Leech Seeds. It's gonna get back, let's say 15%. So now it's still relatively low enough to where it can't take 2 Hydro Pumps from Kingdra
in the rain. Yeah.
So
because especially you factor it's physically defensive. Yeah.
Right. So that's like the type of stuff I'm talking about. Using something that Ferrothorn already has to switch in on, and using that thing to trade for damage on that wall. So in the same way, I think Dragapult, primarily the physical set, benefits a lot. I don't think there are that many things that like a +1 Dragapult. Ferrothorn with the leftovers and the Phantom Force, it's actually really annoying to deal with. And Ferrothorn, I think when people approach the Dragapult set, the physical one, they expect it to operate like a turn 10 type of sweeper. But I think it's more of a turn 30 style of a sweeper. So
when the field's already been set up for where Dragapult can actually do something.
Right. So it's, to me, if you're gonna construct a team, you have to have that Pokemon in mind. And if Mandibuzz is the thing that you're most concerned about, then you toxic it, you burn it. Mandibuzz is a Pokemon. Mandibuzz, Ferrothorn. A lot of Dragapult's answers are Pokemon that have to come in on it. Like, it's not negotiable. Like, it has to come in, or they're gonna lose something else. So,
funnily enough, just to add on to you, Mandibuzz runs primarily special defensive because they want to be able to take the Shadow Balls, the Thunderbolts, the Fire Blast, the Dracos, and they don't have leftovers recovery either, which is a pretty big thing. They also take on Hydreigon, right?
Bingo.
So in that regard, while I do think Banded isn't as
Banded,
I don't know, but I was thinking about Banded Dragon Darts too. It KOs Mandibuzz.
It does.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's really interesting.
And Mandibuzz is rarely ever at 100%. Like, it'll be at 95, or it'll be at. And at that point, if it's Spadef, like Joey mentioned, if it's Spadef and it's not at 100 after +1, you 2-hit KO it, right? But even beyond that, Mandibuzz is something that has to come in on things a lot. Like, a lot of Dragapult's check. Clef is no longer defensive; it's a lot of more offensive. So it's taking a ton from what's his face? It's taking a ton from Phantom Force. I don't remember the exact count, but it kills it from a pretty high up, like maybe 75 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it a lot of the defensive mons are statusable. Ferrothorn, I always burn it. Mandibuzz always burn it or toxic it. Like, these things always happen. So if Mandibuzz isn't at the utmost of health, I'm not saying it can't counter it. Everything can be played around, which is why the meta is so great. But it's definitely something that I think is underrated and is dangerous.
So you don't think special is as good as it could be? I feel like, because like for me, whereas for physical you need to set the conditions, special sets its own conditions because Shadow Ball gets Spadef drops. You know.
Well,
like
I think the special set is. I've never struggled with this. I think it's very easy to pivot around personally because it's not a strong Pokemon.
No, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. But I do think that in general, like, especially if you're using balanced Shadow, if they get that Spadef drop, you go hard Pex, right? You get in Ferrothorn, you get in Corviknight, you will lose your Mon to it. That's it. Of course.
Again, it's just I'm not running to teams that just can't switch into Shadow Ball like that. Like, if let's say it is Pex, right? Because Spadef Corviknight doesn't even get to it killed by.
Corvi doesn't take nothing. Pex doesn't take much either.
None of them do. And then if the selling point is the potential of a 10% Spadef drop, or was it 20 or 10? It's fairly low.
10?
I think it's 10%. If the selling point is the 10% Spadef drop, like, I'm not saying Specs isn't solid. I think the selling point for me on a Spec set, and opinions can change as I play the meta, which is why I wanted
20%. Sorry,
20%. You know, the selling point on Dragapult for me with that special set is the speed. You know, the speed and the fact that Shadow Ball is stab and just a decent spammable move. But if we're talking about, like, me thinking Specs is better than DD or DD is better than Specs, I just haven't seen any evidence to suggest that one is better yet.
No, I mean, like I said, personally, I think Hex Wisp is
that's
one of its strongest sets, period, because of its ability to break through, you know, different archetypes. Right.
That set, I think is if not significantly, is definitely slightly above both. You know, as the metagame progresses, we'll see how, but it's definitely the trickiest set to deal with. Unless you have an Obstagoon. It's definitely the trickiest set.
Even then, bro, you get disabled, then you can't touch Obstagoon.
Right. You can't touch Dragapult, and then it's a PP fest and yada yada. But
exactly.
I think the metagame will develop ways to defeat it and blah blah. You just to make sure, because I remember CM Mega Sableye used to be a thing, like a dangerous damn thing. Like, Mega Sableye didn't used to run knockoff, and CM recover, Dark Stab.
The only way that Mon lost is when it got crit, which it never really did, or it got flinched. Dude, that was literally it. Yeah.
Will-O-Wisp, that thing would run through you, and you had to have like a strong Fairy type or a Megalope just in case.
Zardex, Zardex to hit it with power with Flare Blitzes.
But then that set literally disappeared because people started adapting so much, and then people forgot that used to be Sableye's main thing. And I mean, with the introduction of that was in X and Y, you know, the introduction of, you know, all these Mega Fairies in Altaria, like, a lot more Mons got like assets to deal with it, but it used to be a problem. So in the same way, I think we'll see if sub-disabled Dragapult gets the same treatment. You know, back in Black and White, sub-disabled Gengar used to be a problem. Like, that thing, you never want to run up on sub-disabled Gengar with the wrong team, because it will just mess you up. But then people adapted. So I think that's the best set out now, without a doubt. I think Specs and DD are also sets to consider. I think it's top 10 for sure right now in the metagame.
I agree completely. I just think it's, especially because balance gets so much better with Dynamax being banned, right? You don't have to worry about your Pokemon blowing up, and Dynamax almost always benefited the offensive Mons.
Yeah.
Because they got so many secondary effects and they got so many strong moves. Whereas if a defensive Mon Dynamax, sure, they might be able to live a hit so you don't get swept here, but you can't recover in that form. Typically, when the way I saw it, when you Dynamax a defensive Mon, maybe you max guarded to waste one of their Dynamax turns, and then the next turn you took their hit because of it, and then that was it. Like, you wouldn't recover. They'd go out to something else and revenge you, or you'd have to switch. And that's typically how I saw it. But in this case, we actually have Mons like. There's so many Pokemon that are unexplored that, like one that I've been loving. I know we're talking about Dragapult, but this is something I used to deal with Dragapult, like Milotic, right? Milotic, special Milotic takes like 30% from Specs Hydreigon's Dark Pulse, so it can Ice Beam through and tank hits and be like things like that. So like it's interesting to see how we end up adapting to threats as they go forward, and also like again, I do think that the Wisp Hex set did exist. But like I'll give you a scenario. When I played a battle, it was a Dracovish versus my Dragapult. I had Hex to hit it. They were at like 25%. They Dynamaxed and Max crunched me. I died, whereas I didn't kill them. So like it's not a scenario like that. Where here I can safely come in and take advantage of the bulkier teams like Ferrothorn, Toxapex, whatnot. Sub up on them, Will-O-Wisp them, and either support a different Pokemon or beat them entirely because of it. So. And even the fact that Clefable runs offensive at the moment, right? I still think Calm Mind Clef is very scary. And it always, I think, will be scary. But Clefable runs offensive, so like even though they have Magic Guard, you status them, you Toxic them, you Will-O-Wisp them, they'll be 2-hit KO by Hex. Like, that's the thing. So I do think that Mon just gets a whole lot better.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I don't think it got worse with with the Hex set in particular. But I think the other sets got worse without it. Both Specs and worse doesn't mean bad, like more of an audience, listening.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean bad, it just means it's not as good as it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. All I have I was just looking through the tier as far as, just some things that could potentially help deal with that Dragapult set. And I think the Disable is a massive selling point. So something like, in the return of Mons and whatnot, Tapu Fini, if these things return, Tapu Finis and the Magearnas and whatnot, it should be an interesting adaptation. Heatran, because of the Wisp is huge because it burns physical Mons. If it was like it didn't get Wisp but it was subtoxic or something, then cool, but there's still a lot of ways to deal with that. But the fact that the Corviknight has to worry about losing half his attack, it's a pretty big deal. And a lot of the Magic Guard users are offensive or weak to Ghost, so they get blown away. Magic Bounce users weak to Ghost, they get blown away. Because I believe every Magic Bounce user except Sableye is Psychic.
Yeah.
So, it's gonna be interesting. I think Dragapult has a long way to go, and I'm pumped for it.
I'm excited to see that Mon. To see, I think we obviously play singles, but one thing that makes me really happy, like I've seen Weakness Posse and both VGC and Battle Spot singles, and I'm also excited to see how it forms in Draft League too, because that's where you really get to see Pokemon do unique things.
And then
speaking of Draft League, Mrjamvad. Hey, you already announced it, so you're good. You said you drafted your first Pokemon. I heard it.
Yeah. I mean, they know, but I haven't really gotten into it.
No, I get you.
I'll get into that in time. But yeah, y'all. Hopefully, that's where I'm gonna wrap it up. Unless Joe, you have any final words?
No, I'm pretty good right now.
But like, I'm just looking through the old tier and like, dang, even with the new Mons coming and the old Mons coming back, like Dragapult still is that particular set. It's just very annoying. Pursuit and being gone is the biggest thing.
Yes.
That's why it's just annoying. But yeah, hit the like button down below if you enjoyed the podcast. Follow us on Anchor. Well, yeah, Joey has a podcast as well, so you can follow.
It's been a while, but I
the
do.
Lock on Anchor as well. I'm still debating whether I'm going to put out all these on Anchor. That way we don't flood YouTube, but haven't decided yet. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. In the next episode, we will be discussing probably Corviknight. I think that's definitely one that needs to be discussed. And
that's a good boy. That's damn near the best Mon in my opinion.
Yeah,
I'm balanced.
Low key. But yeah. See you guys in the next one.
Yeah.
Peace.